Welcome everybody to our Chocolatey software product live stream for September. Yes, it's only 108 days till Christmas. Today we're going to look at the most recent release of Chocolatey CLI and another recent release of Chocolatey CLI that I bet you didn't know about. All of that will become apparent shortly. We run 2 live streams every month on the first and third Thursday. This live stream is where we spotlight Chocolatey products, recent releases, and important features. Our other live stream on the third Thursday of each month is the Chocolatey Community Coffee Break, where we talk to members of the Chocolatey community to discuss how you can get involved and also those community updates. The next Chocolatey Community live stream is on the 21st of September, where we will actually be chatting with the newest member of the team. I say that because last month we were chatting to the newest member of the team. This month we're going to be chatting to the newest member of the team. A little bit different. You can watch out for all of our announcements of Chocolatey content by joining us on Discord, subscribing to us on YouTube, and following us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitch. You can find all of those links at the bottom of our homepage, chocolatey.org. The X one is probably still called Twitter. I should actually say X is one's probably still called Twitter. You've got to do the X sign or it doesn't work. My name is Paul Broadwith. I'm the technical engineering manager here at Chocolatey Software and obviously have an obsession with the letter X. I lead the engineering team that's responsible for the products that we'll be talking about today. My co-host, as always, is Gary Yoon Park, who will be taking us through the technical aspect today, including the demos. Gary, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. As Paul said, my name is Gary Yoon Park. I am a principal software engineer here at Chocolatey, and I am happy to be here to do the technical demonstrations so that Paul doesn't have to. There we go. That's why I'm here.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, thank you for making me look good, Gary. That's cool. That's appreciated. So we recently released a 2.2.2 version of Chocolatey CLI, which has been the final in a batch of releases since 2.0.0 was released. As I've said many times in the past, that was a huge release for us, 2.0.0. And off the back of that huge release came a number of bug fixes, a number of issues that were patched. We've added in a few features, the whole thing. So this was the 2.2.2 was the last in that sort of batch of releases for that. But we also didn't release a version 2.2.1. We'll talk about that in a minute. So today we're going to be talking about those releases and the dependency issues that some community members have recently experienced. This was a change in 2.0.0 of Chocolatey CLI. But we've created a page in our docs around this, but we wanted to also demo this in person. And Gary's going to take that through. Gary's going to take us through that today. So, Gary, do you want to kick off with the recent releases first, and then we can start to go through those dependency questions?
Sure. So, Paul's alluded to this, but just to drill into it. So, we were at the point on August the 3rd where we were going to release 2.2.1. We were set to go. Everything was primed. And I literally did one last test just as a sanity check for something and realized that there was a bug that meant we couldn't ship 2.2.1. So rather than release 2.2.1 to then have people have the issue to then upgrade to another version, we thought, let's just finish the process. That's why there are, so looking at my release notes here on the website, we technically created 2.2.1. We just didn't ship it. So it's not listed on the Chocolatey Community Repository. It's not listed on NuGet where you'd normally find it, etc. We've removed it. And what we did instead is we immediately released, but by the time we got through internal testing, verifications, etc., a few days later, we released 2.2.2, which included the fix for the bug that was identified, like I say, at the very last point before we released 2.2.1. So what the intention of today is to go through what was included in the non-released version of 2.2.1, and then ultimately what was released in 2.2.2. So just taking them in order. The first bug here is can't find Choco.exe after upgrading Chocolatey CLI using the MSI. So let's start off with the fact that Chocolatey has an MSI. So if you weren't aware, we do actually ship a MSI that allows you to do an installation of Chocolatey CLI. That MSI is not necessarily at the minute intended for doing upgrades. It is focused primarily on the installation of Chocolatey. Now you can get that MSI from the GitHub release. So every time within a GitHub release, in fact, I'll maybe just show you. I'm not logged into GitHub here, but I'll show you what I can. If I go to the Chocolatey Choco repository here, and I go over to the releases, and on the 2.2.2.1, we will find as an asset the 2.2.2 MSI. So if you wanted to, you could grab the MSI from the GitHub release and install it from there. But as of a few releases back, you can actually do winget install Chocolatey now as well. So the way that winget performs the installation is using the MSI. So what was reported was that if you attempted to upgrade Chocolatey via winget, ultimately via the MSI, it would leave Chocolatey in a broken state. Because again, the MSI was never intended to be a upgrade mechanism. It was intended to just be an initial laydown of Chocolatey, and then from then on, you would do a Choco upgrade Chocolatey to get to the latest version. So what we didn't want to happen was we didn't want an attempt to upgrade via the MSI to leave it in a broken state, but rather inform the user that attempting to upgrade via the MSI wasn't supported, and instead do Choco upgrade Chocolatey. So we worked through that. We figured out what the problem was, and as a result, now if for whatever reason you attempt to upgrade an existing installation of Chocolatey CLI via the MSI, it won't perform the upgrade, but it also won't leave it in a broken state. And then you'll be instructed to do a Choco upgrade Chocolatey to get to the latest package version. I think I covered everything there, Paul, because I wasn't necessarily involved in that issue, but I think I covered the parts of it that we needed to discuss there.
Yeah, we've made it just a nicer experience, I think, and more obvious as to the intentions behind the MSI.
Yeah. So the second bug here is unable to do non-elevated operations when cache location is set to a restricted directory. This one I did have a bit of involvement in because it was not a particularly nice bug to fix. So let's go into the depths of what's going on here. So Chocolatey internally has this concept of a cache location. So it's where it will download temporary files. It's where it'll download the nupkegs before it extracts them into the Chocolatey lib folder. It's where it will download binaries and installers too, as when it's doing part of its installation. Now, normally on a default installation, that cache location is the system level temp folder. So if you do %sign temp %sign, you would get to the system level temp folder, and in there you would find some Chocolatey specific folders. So in addition to that cache location, there is now another cache location that is the HTTP query cache location, and that's where we cache the results of the requests that Chocolatey CLI is making when it's trying to do an installation of a package. So there's two kind of separate cache locations, but what you can do through configuration is you can change the top level cache location where Chocolatey will download the nupkegs, the binaries, etc. And you can set that to whatever you want, right? Now, as part of our, or rather in some of our documentation, we suggest or we recommend that you put that cache location close to the Chocolatey installation folder itself. So in C program data Chocolatey, you would specify the cache location to be there. Okay. Now, if you do that and you change the cache location to be in the C program data folder, you're essentially locking it down so that only administrators can have access to that cache location. The reason that is important is because if you happen to be running Chocolatey as a non-administrator, which you absolutely can do, it's just that some operations can't be done, Any attempt to use that cache location will provide an access denied error, because you can't have access to that folder. Now, the reason that this was interfering or causing problems is because the way that a file is downloaded via the NuGet client assemblies is that it will create a lock file before it actually attempts to do the operation that it wants to do. So it was, although in some instances the cache location was being pointed to the right location and the file could have been downloaded on save to disk, the lock file that was being created couldn't be created. So the end result was a mismatch of, well, I want to put a file here, but I'm not allowed to put a file there, etc. So it was a fairly low level problem that we had to work through. It actually resulted in an update to the NuGet client assemblies that we have, and then we pulled them through into this release of Chocolatey CLI. So hopefully now what will happen is that any attempt to create a lock file and to download a file will respect the current administrative permissions that Chocolatey CLI has. So whether you're running in an admin context or whether you're running in a user context, those files will now be created and stored in the right place. It wasn't a particularly nice bug to work on, but we got there in the end. So that's it. That part has been fixed. The third thing that was included in this release was a dependency change. So we've marked this here so that we can. There's a slight change to the way that we do our release notes. We've added a new section, which is when we take dependencies on some third-party libraries and third-party utility tools. So we're now calling them out specifically in this dependency change section within the release notes. So in this instance, there has been an update to the 7-zip executable. Normally, when we bump the 7-zip executable that we bundle within Chocolatey, it's because there's been a CVE associated with it. So we want to make sure that we pull in the most recent version and ship that as part of Chocolatey. In this instance, it wasn't because there was a CVE. It's because there was a new compression algorithm that's been added. And depending on how the actual zip file or compressed file had been compressed, Chocolatey was no longer able to extract it correctly as part of the installation of a package. So some packages were actually failing because Chocolatey, the bundled version of 7-zip that we include within Chocolatey, wasn't able to extract that file. So we pulled that in. So now you can continue to use all the compression algorithms that are supported within 7-zip as it stands.
I was just going to correct that last bit, Gary. It was it wasn't that packages were failing to install because they all used the kind of older version of 7-zip. It was a specific, I think it was a specific archive that someone was creating with the newer version that had the newer algorithm that they were then trying to use 7-zip inside the Chocolatey package to uncompress.
Yes.
So it wasn't a Chocolatey thing. It was they created that archive, and using Chocolatey. So
that's what I was intending to say. If I didn't say it that way, then that's my mistake. But yes, if someone had included a zip file that was using that new compression algorithm, then Chocolatey, when it attempted to install it, wouldn't be able to uncompress that zip file. Yes, but now it can. So both the bundled version that we ship as part of Chocolatey CLI, as well as the initial version of 7-zip that's used to perform the installation of Chocolatey, is now updated to the most recent version, and that's indicated by the version numbering that 7-zip uses, which is the 23 is the year that it was released. So 2301 is, to the best of my knowledge, the most recent version of 7-zip.
I did not know that. 7-zip used the year.
I'm fairly sure that's what it is.
It makes sense.
I'm hoping someone in the chat might say that that's definitely the case, but I'm fairly sure that that's the case because previous to that it was 2202 or something like that.
I'll see in the chat just to back you up. That's fine.
There you go. So with those two bug fixes and that dependency change in play, we were ready to ship, and then we stopped because of the next bug that I'm away to talk about. Corey isn't helping in the chat room there. So 222 the version 222, it's got a nice ring to it. That's got nothing to do with why we did this. It's nothing to do with a catchy version number. I had version 220 installed on my machine, and as a final test, I went to upgrade to 221, and the upgrade failed. And I was like, is this just happening on my machine, or is this happening for everyone? So I jumped on a call, and it wasn't just me, it was happening for everyone. So what it came down to was, I'll read the words, and then I'll try and explain what they actually mean. So the words there, I'll maybe make them just a smidge bigger. Oh, it's maybe too big. That's maybe too big. The unable to upgrade a package if a dependency only contains pre-release package versions or a package no longer exists on an available source. So what do those words mean, and why did it cause me a problem on my machine? On my machine, I happen to have installed one of the community-driven hook packages for removing desktop shortcuts. Now, that hook package, at the minute, only has a single package version, or it might have two, but both of those package versions are all alpha releases. They're pre-release packages, right? So what happens is when Chocolatey tries to perform an upgrade, it will do a sanity check across some of the other packages that are installed. And in this case, because the Chocolatey hook package has a dependency on Chocolatey, and I was attempting to upgrade Chocolatey, it brought the hook package into the mix and attempted to make sure that all of the available package dependencies were available for it. But because I was installing a stable version of Chocolatey, it was looking for stable versions of the hook package that it was that had an interwoven dependency. And because there weren't any stable versions of the hook package available, it failed because it said it couldn't resolve the dependencies that were associated with the operation that I was attempting to achieve. So long story short, I was stuck. I couldn't upgrade Chocolatey because of the hook package that was also installed on my machine. But the same problem would exist if you had a package installed locally that was no longer available on a source for reasons, or if a package you had installed was on a source that's now been removed. The interwoven dependency tree that attempts to be established meant that operation would fail. So what we had to do was we had to make a slight modification to the code to say, depending on what package version was installed, make a request based on whether it was a pre-release package or not. And then also, if a package couldn't be found on any of the available sources, then we will provide a warning and move on with the dependency resolution. Now, part of the reason that we decided to halt the release was that the fix in some of these scenarios, or the fix in my scenario, was that I would have to uninstall the hook package to then put the hook package back in once I did the upgrade. But if we did that for 221, the fix doesn't exist until 222. So we would have had to do the same dance, if you like, to upgrade to 222. So rather than force users to do an upgrade to 221 to then have to do another upgrade to 222, we basically said, let's halt the release. That was an interesting conversation I had with Paul when we brought this up. We were going to halt the release, and then we'll ship a 222. So that's what we did. Long story short, it was again a fun expedition into figuring out all these problems that we had in this little run up. But I'm happy to say that since the 222 release, we haven't had any more issues brought up that we weren't already aware of. So I'm very hopeful that the 222 release marks the end of the upgrade to the 2.x version of Chocolatey. So all the new functionality in terms of support for V3 package feeds and all the additional things that came with the original 2.0 release, we're hopefully, touch wood, at the end of that journey. And from now on, we can start thinking about additional feature releases of Chocolatey going forward. So did I capture everything there, Paul? Did I miss anything? Or was that everything?
No, I think that covers it really well. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's interesting conversations aside.
Indeed. So with that, the where we're going to turn the focus of the demos was to start talking about some of the potential situations that people can get into and why those situations now can cause problems for Chocolatey. I'll talk about it in more detail, but I want to give you a little bit of a heads up of what I've got, because rather than having a single VM for a demonstration, I've actually got two VMs in the mix. So at the top here, you can see that this is Choco Demo 2, and then I've got another VM that is Choco Demo 1. Both of these machines are in a state where they're essentially broken, right? Now, in order to get them into a state where they're broken, I've had to do things to the Chocolatey package folder that you should never do, right? So don't try this at home. The reason that I've had to make those changes is to get to a reproducible state where I can show you some of the problems you can get into, to then be able to show you how you can get out of them again. Okay, so because I'm a little bit silly, I'm going to start with Choco Demo 2, because obviously that's the first number that you should start with, right? So on this machine, if I do a Choco list, then we'll see that I've got a few packages installed. This is by no means a realistic scenario. You might have many more packages than this, but it's enough packages in there to illustrate the problem that I've currently got. Okay, so on this machine, you can see I've got Chocolatey, I've got some of the extensions, I've got Google Chrome, I've got a number of KB packages, then I've got Notepad++, then I've got OBS Studio, and then I've got some of the VC Visual C++ redistributables. I always get confused by that word. The I give up. The packages for Visual Studio
Redist.
Redist. There we go.
It's
The Visual C++ Redist packages installed. If you look a little bit closer, you'll see that I've currently got OBS Studio 29.1.3 installed, and I've got OBS Studio.install 29.1.1 installed. So there's a mismatch there. Now, why is this important? It's important because of the dependency between OBS Studio and OBS Studio.install. There's from the meta package, from the parent package, there is a fixed dependency on the same version of the OBS Studio install package being installed. Now, the reason we do that, or the reason that Chocolatey package maintainers do that, is because they want to have this package available for visibility, for discoverability of a package. So if you've got an application called OBS Studio, you want to be able to just do Choco install OBS Studio. Or if you've got Git, you want to install the Git package, you want to install just the Git package. So we would want to do Choco install Git, Choco install Notepad++, Choco install whatever. But under the hood, because of the different makeup of Chocolatey packages, there could be a portable version of that application, or there could actually be an installer version of that application. So from a discoverability point of view, I don't care that OBS Studio by default has the installed version. I just want to install OBS Studio. If I specifically want to install the portable version of OBS Studio, then I can absolutely do that. But from a discoverability point of view, I just want to do Choco install OBS Studio. Now, there are times though, because of the dependency tree, if you attempt to do an OBS Studio install, the OBS Studio.install package might fail. And it doesn't get to 29.1.3. Now, in that scenario, because of the dependency tree, Chocolatey should uninstall the original OBS Studio package as well and take them both back to 29.1.1. But there are also scenarios, for instance, when you do a Choco upgrade all, that the OBS Studio package may be upgraded, but again, the OBS Studio.install package might not be upgraded. So why is this a problem? Well, if I go down to my command line here and I attempt to do Choco upgrade Notepad++, so I've just been talking about OBS Studio. Why are we now talking about Notepad++? Well, let me show you. If I attempt to do Choco upgrade Notepad++, it's going to fail And if we read through the failures here, we'll see that there are constraint violations between OBS Studio and OBS Studio.install. And then there are other dependency conflicts when we get down to looking at the VC Redis packages. So why is this happening? Well, I've kind of alluded to it before, but I'll go over it again. When you attempt to install a meta package, the parent package, OBS Studio, or in this case, Notepad++, it has a dependency on the Notepad++.install package. But then the Notepad++.install package has further dependencies. So in this case, it might go all the way down to Chocolatey core extension, or it might go all the way down to the VC Redis package, that dependency tree that Chocolatey attempts to ensure is correct. But in attempting to ensure that that dependency tree is correct, it also wants to make sure that the dependency tree of any related packages is also safe and secure, and all the safe and secure is not really the right terminology. It wants to ensure that the dependency tree of all the interwoven related packages makes sense. So in this scenario, OBS Studio.install and Notepad++.install share some of that same package hierarchy. So if we were to drill down into the individual dependencies for each one of those packages, we would likely find that the OBS Studio.install, let's just pick the example, takes the dependency on the VC Redis 140 package. But we'll likely find that both the Notepad++.install and the OBS Studio.install share that dependency. And then when Chocolatey is figuring out the interwoven dependencies, it will see, well, you've got OBS Studio 29.1.3 installed, but you've got OBS Studio 29.1.1 installed, or vice versa. And that's wrong, right? So we could say, well, that's okay. Let's just move forward with the installation, or the upgrade in this case. But we don't want to compound the problem by making it worse. Because if we allow the operation of the upgrade of Notepad++ to continue, it might attempt to install the dependencies that don't match or don't meet the dependencies of the other interwoven dependency trees. So rather than potentially make the problem worse, Chocolatey now says, no, we're going to stop, right? And you need to make the lib folder, which is where all the packages reside, you need to make that lib folder valid before we allow you to do any other operations. So while there are errors regarding the Chocolatey core extension, it's showing that because of the previous warning which actually started the tree here. So although the error is the final thing that you see, in this scenario, it's actually the first warning that we show. But because of the way that we resolve the dependencies, it's the last error, or the last dependency violation, that gets bubbled up as the error. So what I'm getting at is that there's lots of text here. And it can be confusing because, again, I was attempting to upgrade Notepad++. So why am I being told about all these OBS Studio problems? And why am I being told about all of these extensions? And why am I being told about all of these VC Redis? It's because they're all related. And we need to be a little bit careful about how we are reading the warnings and how we're reading the errors in order to get out of these problems. Okay? So what I will say is that a colleague of mine, Corey, spent a fair bit of time documenting a couple of different examples of how this can happen. And he's went through in quite a bit of detail what we can do to fix it, the kind of scenarios that you can get into, etc. So if someone's in the chat, feel free to drop a link to that, because I can't at the minute. So I'd encourage everyone who sees this problem to look at this document. I can't remember whether it's linked from the output or not. If it's not, that's something I think we spoke about doing in the next version. We'd probably want to link to that page when this error occurs. But what I want to do now is I want to attempt to fix this problem so that we can actually move forward. So again, the problem that we have is the Choco upgrade Notepad++. So I'll do it again just so that we can see that's still broken. But what I will show is that if I attempt to do some other operation where the interwoven dependencies aren't related, Chocolatey works as normal. So if I go to my favorite package, which is Choco install Winderstat, my favorite package because it's a nice and simple installation and it's a great application. So I'll highlight it again. So I can do Choco install Winderstat and it will work fine, right? And I can also obviously then do Choco uninstall. I'm just adding the -n there for speed to expedite the process. You obviously wouldn't want to do that because -n is shorthand for skip PowerShell, and it wouldn't actually install the Winderstat application, but it still installs the Winderstat package, which is where the dependency resolutions come from, right?
Harry, just a
Yes,
question on that. If you're saying that Chocolatey won't let you do things because the lib folder is problematic and Chocolatey's trying to protect you or your Chocolatey packages from becoming more of a problem than they currently are. So it's trying to say, hey, you know, there's a problem here. I don't want to get you in a worse state than you're currently in. Why does it let Winderstat install and uninstall?
it's a great question. So in this scenario, Winderstat is essentially a standalone application or a standalone package. I don't think it has any dependencies on it. So what Chocolate is trying to protect us from when we do the Notepad++ upgrade is that it knows that some of the dependencies that are needed by Notepad++ are needed by some of the other things that are installed already. So rather than attempt to say, okay, I'm going to upgrade all of the dependencies for this branch of the dependency tree, and I'm going to ignore everything else that might cause problems, I'm just going to stop. But when I do Choco install Winderstat, it's isolated. It doesn't share that same dependency tree with anything else that's already currently installed. So that operation can proceed without causing any problems. It's only when there are interwoven dependencies between the thing that you're trying to install or upgrade and other things you've already got installed. So
So
sometimes you'll see a warning or an error, and sometimes it'll happily do the operation that you've asked it to do.
So that's why some people, when they're reporting the issue with the dependency tree, it only affects some packages, and some of the questions are
Correct.
sometimes, well, it doesn't work with this, but it works with that one. Why is that the case? And that's
Yeah,
the reason that the dependency trees are not connected in any way.
correct.
Okay.
So when people are um, when we went through a period of having quite a few issues raised in and around this, the immediate question for us was, well, what packages do you have installed? Because we weren't able to reproduce the problem sometimes because we didn't have the same dependency tree in play. And it wasn't until we started getting that additional information from the issues that we were able to look at it and say, well, oh, that's why it makes sense. The other prime example of this scenario is when I went to release the 221 package, it was kind of a fluke that I had the hook package installed that was causing that specific problem. Anyone else who didn't have that hook package installed wouldn't have seen the bug that I saw when we went to release 221. Now, we've obviously now included some additional testing within our process so that we can attempt to catch that problem if it happens again. But it was kind of fluke. And it was only because of that dependency that I had that caused that bug to surface. And it's a similar thing here. Depending on what packages you have installed, the dependency tree will either cause a problem or it won't. And it's an unfortunate situation when it comes to reporting some of these things because we need to get to the exact same status or state of our computers in order to be able to dig into it and debug and find out what's going on. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
It
Okay.
does, yeah.
Okay. So if I clear my screen now, so the upgrade of the Notepad++ is not working. The installation of Winderstat is. So how do we fix this? Well, what we need to do is we need to upgrade the problematic package. So the problematic package as it currently stands is, if I do a Choco list again, the problematic package is this one. So 2913 has a fixed dependency on a Choco. The 2913 package has a fixed dependency on OBS Studio.install 2913. And until that is met, any package installation or any package upgrade that shares dependencies with this package won't be allowed to proceed. So what we need to do is we need to upgrade this one. So I'm going to go and grab some text so I don't have to type it out and show how bad my typing is under pressure. So I'm going to go over here and go copy, and I'm going to go into here. And now I'm going to get caught by PowerShell not letting me copy because I clicked into the terminal. Let me do that again. So if I'll do here and then I'll paste. So I'm going to do Choco upgrade OBS Studio.install. So again, I'm using the -n just for the sake of brevity. So we'll still see a warning at this point. So you'll be like, well, why are we showing a warning? Again, if you read the text of that warning, it's because there is still that mismatch between the package versions. But if the operation that you're doing is trying to fix that violation, it allows it to proceed. So in this scenario, we've now successfully upgraded the OBS Studio.install to 2913. So if I do another Choco list, we'll see that now this matches and this matches. So if I go ahead and attempt my upgrade of Notepad++ again, that operation will now succeed without any warnings, without any errors, and it will be allowed to upgrade that package, which is what we were trying to do in the first place. So this is a reasonably, I'm not going to say it's reasonably common. It's a common enough situation to get into that we wanted to highlight it, right? Because of the scenario where you're doing a Choco upgrade all, there is a potential for the meta package or the parent package to be installed correctly, but the underlying one to error out and to cause a problem. And at that point, you need to look at what packages you've got installed, what dependencies they have between each other. And that, as I say, is what Corey is talking through in this article, where he goes through it in quite a bit of depth. So I would encourage everyone to go and look at that again and read through that and make sure that they are understanding everything. And if they've got any questions, feel free to reach out. So that was the first demo. Any questions on any of that, Paul, before we move forward on to the next one?
No, I think it's different for me because I can understand the situation. So I'm trying to think of what questions people watching may have.
Yep.
There's none in the chat as at the moment, but I'm also thinking about the issues that have been raised and some of the questions that came out of that as well. I've also put the dependency documentation link, although you can't click the link on the screen, but the URL is there. And there's also a link in chat for people that want to go and click that. What we'll also do is we're going to put this video into that document once the video is complete, and we'll kind of link from when we've started it. So hopefully that will help people as well. But yeah, so far I think it's good, and it answers certainly my questions and the questions I think the community would have.
Okay, so with that then, I'm going to jump over to my other machine, which is Choco Demo 1. Again, numbering's hard, right? But this is the second demo that's on Choco Demo 1. Now I've thoroughly broke this installation. Don't do what I've done on any production machine, because it's just just don't do it, right? So if I do a Choco list on this machine, we'll see that we've got quite a few more packages. I kind of went through an example that Corey created. I installed a bunch of things. There's interwoven dependencies between Visual Studio and .NET and Git and ILSpy and ReSharper. Lots of interwoven dependencies, right? Now, one of the things you might spot here is that there aren't any KB packages, right? That's because I went and deleted them all. Again, don't try this at home, right? I deleted a bunch of KB packages because I wanted to put my system in a state where it was thoroughly broken, right? And I achieved that. It's thoroughly broken, right? So if I attempt to do an installation of a random package, right? So again, I said I've got Visual Studio, I've got .NET, I've got IL Spy, I've got .NET Framework versions, I've got all of these things installed. So if I attempt to install something, let's actually come out of that so that we can clear the screen first. If I come in here and attempt to install glab, so glab is a utility tool for GitLab that allows you to perform operations at the command line against GitLab. So it's a somewhat unrelated to the packages that I've currently got installed. But if I attempt to install that, I'm going to get lots of yellow text, and I'm going to get some red text that says unable to resolve dependency KB 306 3858. So again, that's one of the packages that I purposefully went and deleted. Again, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't normally do that, but it gets us into a situation where things are in a state that we can talk through how you can fix it. Okay. So the immediate thing might be to say, well, it's unable to resolve the dependency KB 306. So why don't we just go and install that? That would be the smart thing to do because it's the one that can't be found, right? So let's go ahead and try that. And I'm going to grab some text from over here. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to attempt to install that KB that was mentioned as being missing. Because obviously that's going to fix the problem. But it doesn't. Because it says then, well, it's got a dependent KB package that also needs to be installed. So then, if I went to try and install that one, it would tell me that there's another dependency missing. And I would go down this little dependency tree and it wouldn't allow me to get past it. It would just go round in circles effectively and say, this KB is dependent on this one's dependent on this one, you can't move forward. So in this scenario, I just saw a comment from Ryan there. Yes, that's one of the well-known KB packages that has been a source of wonder and merriment across the years. So yeah, if I went to attempt to install the KB355 package, it would cause another issue. So in this scenario, to get out of the situation that we're in just now, we're going to do something slightly different to what we did before. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to take a note of the package that failed to install when we attempted to install that KB package. And we're going to force the installation of that first KB package by saying, ignore dependencies. So again, not something you would typically do, but if you're in this situation where there's a mismatch of dependencies within your lib folder, again, we don't want to make the problem worse by allowing you to do operations that you're not meant to do. But if you know that this is a way that you can get out of it, then you can use the ignore dependencies flag to move forward. So in this scenario, I'm going to install that KB by ignoring the fact that there's a dependency on the other package. And this time, what I'm going to do, now that I've done that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to attempt the installation of the package that was mentioned as the dependent package when we did the last operation. So I'm going to attempt the installation of that dreaded 355 package. And if I do that, it'll then say, well, you need that one. So this is where we start going round in a little circle. I'm going to do the exact same operation that I did before, as I'm going to take a note of the one that's currently causing the problem, which is 226. I'm going to force the installation of 355 by ignoring dependencies. And then I'm going to attempt the installation of 226, that was the one that was causing the problem for the last dependency. And this time, we'll get to another one, and it'll say 929. So I'm not going to labor the point and go through and talk about every single one of these, but the process is the same. We need to identify what is the problem package. Let's attempt the installation of that package and see if there are any related packages that also need to be installed. We'll take a note of that. We'll move forward by doing an installation and ignoring the dependency so that Chocolatey can move forward. And then we should hopefully get to the end of this tree, which allows us to then perform the operation that we wanted to do, which was to install glab. So again, I'm going to do the ignore dependencies on 226. I had a note of the KB, which was 929. Again, I've got a list of commands over on my window over here that I can copy and paste from. So I'm going to attempt the installation of 929, and it'll tell me that 442 is missing. So I've taken a note of that, and and I'm going to ignore the dependencies when I install the 929 package. And then we'll get down to another one where we attempt to install the 442, which was the one that was missing previously. We'll get told that we're missing 131. And then if I ignore the dependency installation of that and then attempt the installation of 131, we'll get to a point, hopefully, copy that. If I attempt the installation of 131, there'll be a warning that's saying there's, again, similar to what we saw when we did the installation of, or the upgrade of Notepad++ at the end. It gave us a warning saying that there was an unmet constraint somewhere, but it allowed us to proceed because the constraint was only limited to the package that we're currently installing. So it knows at that point it's fixing the issue. So at this point, now that I didn't have any errors from that installation command that I was doing, I can now go back and attempt the installation of the glab package again. I'm going to copy this. So if I now do choco install glab, it will now proceed and work correctly. So that was a fairly convoluted example, but it's not unheard of for that sort of situation to happen because of reasons. Now, in some of the issues, the open source issues that we worked with, people got into various different states. And it wasn't until we started looking what packages were installed that we were able to start looking at how to allow them to move forward. And that's where the documentation that Corey created came from. There was examples of these are the situations that we can get into. These are the kind of things that you can do to resolve them, either by directly installing a problematic package, in the case of the OBS Studio one, which was in the wrong version, or there's a known dependency tree violations that are causing problems figuring out the dependency tree. So if you're in that scenario, that's where the ignore dependencies strategy comes into play. But again, it's very situation specific, and it's very related to what packages and what dependencies you have installed. So unfortunately, there's no magic wand. It's a case of reading through this documentation, understanding where the mismatch is happening, and then moving forward by either installing or upgrading or removing the problematic package, performing the operation you want to do, and then putting the other package back in again if that's what it comes to. There have been discussions around how we can improve this messaging, or whether we move back to the way that Chocolatey CLI 1.x used to work. Because in these situations, Chocolatey 1.x would allow you to perform the operation even though there was a violation of the dependency trees. So as we move forward with the new version of the NuGet client assemblies, they've taken a much harder stance in saying the lib folder, or the target of where you're installing the packages, that needs to be in a good state. And we've adopted that same stance where we've said, we understand that the lib folder is in a bad state. We're not going to make it worse by allowing you to compound the problem by installing or upgrading other packages. We need you to fix those dependency resolutions problems before adding any more things on top of it. So while we might look to how we can improve the messaging and the verbiage that comes out when we're in this situation, we're committed now to keeping that lib folder intact, the first priority. So we're not going to allow you to do the operations when we know that there's a problematic set of packages in play. So lots of words there again, Paul. Anything in there that needed to be discussed further, or do we think we've covered it?
I think we've covered it, Kerry. Just to stress as well that when we're talking about this, people might think, oh well, this is something that's going to come up regularly. You shouldn't really ever get in this situation. Some people
No,
have,
correct.
and it does happen, but it's not a normal day-to-day occurrence. When I installed Chocolatey 2.x, the very first time after having 1.x installed, I got these errors, not the same errors, but the same dependency tree problems. Once I'd solved them, I've never had them again.
Yes.
So for me, it was moving because 1.x, as you said, was much more lax about how it let you do things, allowing me to get into that situation. And 2.x has said, no, you're in this situation, you need to fix it. Once fixed, I've never had a problem again. And to be fair as well, the issues that were raised very early on in the
Yeah.
2.x life cycle. Not really had. I can't think of any that's been raised on this problem since I put the documentation together, and since we've kind of helped to sort of simplify these issues a little bit, simplify this in Chocolatey CLI. So there's been none of these issues for quite a while. So I think it was a migration to 2.x. People had some of the issues because 1.x was a bit lax. Problem's been solved. Let's move on. And we've not had any sense. So now that I've said that, there'll be a flurry of them coming in. That's sod's law. But yeah, we seem to have got over that hump. But I think it's still important for us to point them out.
There is. And there was, in some of the other point releases on 2.x, we did make some changes to other parts of the dependency resolution. So there was the one example that springs to mind is that if you attempted to upgrade Chocolatey when you had, say, the Chromium package installed, because of the interwoven dependencies there, we Chocolatey CLI was a very greedy in terms of how many packages it wanted to bring into the dependency resolution tree. And as a result, there were lots of queries going out the door and lots of packages being inspected. So, by virtue of fixing that problem, I think we've also fixed some of the dependency resolution issues that we were seeing as well. But again, it's hard to say because we're not always comparing apples to apples. But I think through the 2.1, 2.2, and the bug fixes on top of that, I think we've ironed out some of these. So the situations that are left are actually problematic situations. Now, like I say, I had to do some fairly naughty stuff to get my two demo VMs into a state where I could mimic this situation. The things that I did were not common practice. I was having to allow downgrade and force installation of packages. I had to completely nuke KB packages directly from the lib folder. That's not things that we would recommend or suggest people do, but it was the only way that I could get my machines into a situation where I could demonstrate some of these things. So again, yes, you're right. It's not something you should come up on a day-to-day basis, but it was often enough that we wanted to, I guess, put some words and demonstrations around the documentation that Corey's created for the website. So I think what you said was that we'd be linking to this video from this documentation so that people could have both the written version and kind of a walkthrough of how to resolve these problems as well. So hopefully that will help anyone that is still in these situations.
Yeah, we'll be doing that after the video. So probably next week at some point we'll update
Yeah.
the documentation to get that linked in. I've also left the documentation URL on the screen as well, and it's in the chat a few messages ago as well, so there's plenty of places to get it from.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's all I had. I think that's all I had.
Awesome. So I'm hoping that helps the people that had those issues. And if you do have the issues, as we said, we'll be linking to this to the docs. You'll probably be watching this in the document. Hi. So that will hopefully get you out of any holes that you've dug yourself into. But as we said, these issues were prevalent. Just the migration from to the new 2.x version. You need to do some strange things in order to get this to happen now. But there'll be situations that people can get themselves into without doing too much that we're not aware of. There might be a particular scenario on your machine where you do something and it gets you into this. So hopefully these documents get you out of that, and this video helps with that as well. That's all we had today to kind of pick up on. I'm going to take the URL off the screen just now. Just there we go. It's still in chat if anybody needs it. So I want to thank Gary, first of all, for being my co-host today. We're going to wrap up. We're just a few minutes early. And, thanks to Gary for taking us through the demos. Gary, do you want to say anything before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I think I've said enough for this particular stream. So no, thank you for listening. As always, if there are any questions, feel free to reach out. We're all over the place in terms of communication mechanisms. So reach out and let us know if you've got any problems.
Awesome. And thanks to you, thanks to Gary, and thanks to you as well for watching us today. Please follow us on Twitch and subscribe with the bell on YouTube, and you'll get notifications when we stream. Join us on Discord and follow us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and Facebook as well. You can find those links at the bottom of our homepage, chocolatey.org. Our next community coffee break is on the 21st of September. Speaking too fast, at 4 p.m. UTC, we will be chatting to our newest member of the team, and our next product spotlight, which is this live stream, is on the 5th of October, also at 4 p.m. UTC. So we hope to see you then. Take care, and bye-bye.
See you later.